Hello and welcome to Halcyon Blink. My name's Ron Rising. I'm going to be your host for this episode. And on this edition, I want to talk about American Gangster, Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe. Excellent film, magnificent, quintessential gangster film, hence the title. The idea being that a medium to low gangster by the name of Frank Lucas takes over from another gangster by the name of Bumpy at the beginning of the film, set in the 1970s, and they're supposedly surrounding the real life account of the Frank Lucas that existed in this time. Basically, he rises to become a prominent gangster in the Harlem area of New York as it pertains to the heroin trade.
20% is my profit, Tango. I give you that, what do I got left? Nothing, right? 20% puts me out of business and every somebody you know out of business.
A few moments later.
What you doing? You gonna shoot me in front of everybody? Huh? Come on.
He sets up a traffic network from Vietnam via a cousin of his to get heroin direct from the Viet Cong, as opposed to getting it via various sources, and is able to surpass his competition by selling a more pure substance for a lot cheaper. The comments that it makes about the 1970s at the time, transitioning from that small scale but much more friendly mom and pop style of capitalism to the more mainstream what we see today, cutting out the middleman, mass producing, going direct, buying things wholesale, things of that nature.
What's wrong with America? It's gotten so big, you just can't find your way. The grocery store. On the corner's now a supermarket. Candy store. It's McDonald's.
It also touches on another character, Russell Crowe's character, who's a detective who, during the 1970s when corruption in the police department, especially in the narcotics divisions, was rife.
You know what? You can do whatever you want to do. So it don't mean nothing to me for you to show up tomorrow morning with your head blown off. You understand what I'm saying?
Hey, Frank, get in line. That one stretches around the block, too.
Honest police officers didn't really exist, or at least this is what the film wants us to believe. At the end of the film, it makes an assertion that 3/4 of the narcotics division within the New York Police Department was arrested and convicted. I don't necessarily know if that's true. I would think the figure is probably less, and they've sensationalized the figures to a certain degree. But what's good about this film? Well, the way that they've paced the film in the initial proceedings, the way that they follow these two seemingly unlinked characters through the story, almost paralleling each other, but they don't necessarily both ascend at the same rate. They both go through peaks and troughs and valleys as they go. Frank obviously more so than the detective Russell Crowe plays. But what I would say is the fact that neither one of these characters has any interaction with the other until the very end of the film. And that's somehow quite powerful because you understand that Frank Lucas is being pursued by Russell Crowe's character, but yet there's no personal animosity between the two. There's a competitiveness that Frank has to stay on top and to stay in power and to learn from the mistakes of Bumpy's past while making a few of his own. Obviously, because of this new way of producing heroin and being a drug dealer and being a newfound gangster, he's upsetting the natural order of things, which makes him susceptible to other gangs, other politicians, other corrupt cops.
Catch me, infringement, insist. I don't like these words as much as please. Thank you, I'm sorry to bother you, Nikki. These are better words you use. You come to my motherfucking club without an invitation. Hear me?
Oh, man.
Josh Brolin's in this film and plays an excellent cop character who's corrupt to the core, detestable and on the take, albeit his character arc is is quietly predictable in certain senses, and you'll get what I mean when you watch the film. Russell Crowe's character is deeply flawed. He's a bit of a womanizer who has problems with his ex-wife and the custody of his child while he's also pursuing the bar exam. This all adds into this real complex web of both characters having personal lives and things that drive them beyond the story. There's other things going on that feed in but don't necessarily, the story's not hinging on it. It's an excellent exhibition of storytelling for storytelling's sake to a degree, but also having ancillary characters and things that happen off the cuff that add flesh and life and realism to these characters. As I say, the interaction Russell Crowe has with his ex-wife in experiencing trying to pass the bar and assembling his team is excellent. Frank Lucas having to attempt to reconcile his gangster lifestyle with what's right for business, with what's right for his family, ever involving more and more members to structure it in more like an Italian crime family from the 1940s, 50s and 60s, like the original Mafia.
The most important thing in business is honesty, integrity, hard work, family, never forgetting where we came from. Thank you, Sean.
Another aspect of this film that's absolutely amazing is the soundtrack. 1970s inspired. I believe it's the Johnson Brothers, Hold On, I'm Coming. Excellent song. I've downloaded it and listened to it all the time since. What I'd also say is that the cinematography is excellent. They don't use any flashy trickery or anything along those lines. It's very gritty and very real. A lot of the scenes are well paced. There's a lot of character one-on-one chats. There's not really any mass scenes except for right at the end of the film, which it builds to a magnificent crescendo. The only thing that I would warn people about this film is that it doesn't have an ending that lends itself well to a big payoff. There's not this big shootout where the bad guy goes down, guns blazing. There's no final confrontation where the good guy ultimately triumphs over evil. As a matter of fact, I'll blow the story here. Russell Crowe's character goes on to convict Denzel Washington's character, but then goes on to defend him as his very first trial as a lawyer.
They hate what you represent.
I don't represent nothing but Frank Lucas.
You sure? Black businessman like you? You represent progress. The kind of progress that's going to see them lose a lot of money. With you out of the way, everything can return to normal.
My man.
In the extended edition, he even meet when he gets out for the first time, displaying this world that's moved on 15 years after his conviction, with rap music having become prominent and Harlem having developed in the time since.
Frank, there you are. Cafe latte.
Latte.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. You all right? Yeah. That's a fancy way of saying coffee with milk. $2.50.
Yeah, where we gonna go, man? Well, chill out, walk around.
Here's this. Expensive sneakers. About $100 a pair.
You know, the time passing, which is another excellent note. The story uses the Vietnam conflict as a way of pacing the story for the viewer. So initially, at least, Frank's ascent from being simply a driver and a middleman in a mafia outfit or a gangster outfit to being a crime overlord, it happens quite quickly. It happens over the space of maybe 10-15 minutes. But you get a good sense of the pace because of the way that the story is told in the background through the news excerpts and the radio transmissions. It's an excellent touch that helps give you pace to the story without bombarding you with so much information you can't keep track. Frank Lucas as a character as well, I understand in real life was a real horrible son of a bitch, but Denzel Washington's is so endearing. The catchphrase of "my man," it's slick, it's cool, it's almost reminiscent of another character who I'll be talking about in another review shortly. But what I would say about Denzel Washington is he unravels as the film goes on and he finds some resolution in being caught and giving evidence, and there's an odd satisfaction that comes from that kind of ending rather than him being just bad and being convicted and behind bars and yay, everyone wins. It's an excellent film, well paced, well shot, excellent soundtrack, the acting is superb, the story is magnificent, and it serves well to multiple watches because there's going to be parts of the story and nuances that you're going to miss on a first watch, and I would highly recommend a few watches of this. It still holds up to this day. It is 3 hours, the extended edition. It's long, but it doesn't feel long, which is another great compliment I can pay to this film. It's a 9 out of 10 experience, an excellent film, a quintessential gangster film, quintessential Denzel Washington film. Not one of Russell Crowe's greatest performances, but he's an excellent supporting actor in this role. If you want to say that they're equal billing, fine, but I would argue that Russell Crowe supports Denzel Washington in this endeavor. So, what do you think? Have you seen American Gangster? How does it compare to other gangster films, such as another film I'll be reviewing very shortly, but other classics such as The Godfather and Casino and Goodfellas? How do you think it stacks up? Does it measure up to those classics, or does it surpass them in a way, perhaps? Ridley Scott films, do you have any other favourites or any other genres that you think he should be tackling, considering sci-fi, gangster, drama, all things that are within his wheelhouse, so maybe he should do romantic comedy next? Who knows? In the meantime, thank you very much for watching this episode of Halcyon Blink. Please like, share, subscribe, check out some of the other content creators in the description below, follow me on Twitter, and as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Halcyon Blink.